It was up to the running.
I got it. Okay, ladies, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, calling to order our public hearing on our water rate increase. The proposed, excuse me, because we have not decided, it is not the city council meeting right now. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the city council to hear this matter at this time? I hear and see none. Does any councilor believe he or she has a conflict of interest and wants to declare?
No.
No. No? Right. I'm going to request the staff report at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you know, we've been talking about this water rates increase for some time now. We had a July work session where Council instructed us to write a resolution reflecting a 15% increase. We learned that the operating the way that we were with the rates that we have is not sustainable, and that expenses have definitely increased along with the amount of people in town and how our water is distributed. So over that period of time and working with Steve, our consultants, the council decided and instructed the staff to do a 15% increase. We're bringing that to you here. This increase in combination with a rate increase from the city of Warrenton will balance this out over the next year. We have this 1 year without a rate increase from Warrenton, but in July 2024, we're going to see an increase of almost 40%. So to accommodate that, we're looking at raising our rates and then also increasing our water reserve funds to operate our system. So after doing those studies, after listening to the council and getting direction from them, and also after a town hall meeting on July 26th, here we are. This is an additional meeting, an additional hearing that we are doing, not absolutely necessary, but it is something that wanted to happen in order to keep residents apprised of what was going on. So we, in our packet a little bit later, have a resolution for a 15% water rate increase. And that's what the staff is recommending moving forward. From there, does the council have any questions?
And the resolution is also to increase the tapping fees.
Yeah, a slight increase in tapping fees. And there are other fees. So the tapping fee is where we connect people to our water system. So we dig a hole on a new bill and then connect to the water main to a water meter, and then that water meter is connected to the home. The portion from the water main to the water meter is the city of Gerhardt, and we have had traditionally, I think it was $1,100 was the rate for us to charge. We're just increasing that by the 15% as well, and then bringing that up to $1,322.50. But the staff is doing some work and is going to approach the city council here at a future date with other, with these rates and, excuse me, with these tapping rates and with some other fees that we have, such as water turnoff fees, such as, give me a couple
late
of
fees, shut off notices, call outs, so sending out on public works. I've looked at other people's ordinances and what other things are charged, and just kind of gathering those and seeing what other people charge, implement and not implement. Because at this point, we charge no additional fees.
Right. Even though it's taken up your staff time and that's a little extra work for you, taking or doing other things.
Correct.
Correct.
And those are all standard things that you expect from most water providers.
That we've seen in almost every city. There's different levels of rates that they have. Some have rates and rates and rates of different things that they charge. Other cities just have a couple of things, like if you're delinquent on your account, if you request something specific, we'll look and see what we think is fair and put something together.
Okay, we're gonna keep the rest of the discussion of that kind for the city council meeting. Right now, I want to go through this hearing and get that taken care of. So is there any other additional correspondence?
No, sir.
Okay, are there any presentations by proponents? Okay,
I signed up.
you signed up, but that's for the city council meeting. Are you?
I'm for the public hearing on the water rate increase. Is that what this is about?
It is. And are you going to talk at the city council meeting also?
No, just for this.
Okay, then go ahead. You're a proponent. Okay.
Name and address, please.
Okay. I'm Deanna Mansell. I live at 2945 Highway 101 North, Gerhardt. I do want to speak in support of the water rate increase. It's a necessary thing to get the water budget balanced. But there was another issue that I wanted to bring to your attention that maybe you could address at a later time during your budget hearings. Earlier, I had talked about the antiquated water pipes in the city. I understand some of them have been replaced, but I don't know how many have been. But when I read the 2012 Water Conservation Management Plan and the other one that you guys adopted last spring, it seems that Kennedy James and the new conservation plan indicated that you guys have like a 38% water loss. The public works director recently said that it's only 10% loss. I kind of question what I'm reading, because I was reading Astoria's water management plan, and they could quantify what their water losses are. Like, the way they do is they figure out what their annual production is at their water plant. Then they can go back and figure out what their annual billed water is. And then they can figure out what the unbilled water is. And out of 752 million gallons of water, their production, billed water was 533 million gallons. Unbilled water was 220 million gallons. So they had a percentage loss of 29%. And I was hoping that maybe we could quantify what our water loss is, because as we're paying the increased cost to Warrenton, we really have to figure this out. It was a good step to start replacing the water meters, but we also have to try to determine where the leaking pipes are. If there are, the water line in front of my house on the highway is from like 1940. You know, 80 years is a long time for a water pipe. So what I'm proposing that you may, study that issue and see, what our water losses are. And then maybe we could, get more in the black, with the water fund. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. That's a great idea. If they're losing 29% of their water, that's a lot of water.
Yeah, and I don't know what we're losing.
Right. Okay. Are there any other proponents that wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, are there any presentations by opponents to the water rate increase? Seeing none, we'll move on. I don't imagine there's a staff summary or response to any positive feedback.
I can go ahead and address just a tiny bit about the water rates and conservation levels or water loss, excuse me.
Okay,
Mark McFadden is working on a company having to do with the water loss. And Christy, Justine have been working very hard on our system, database system for the water billing. We had some discrepancies in there. So we weren't able to make those calculations as simple as we would have liked to. So now that the water database is in much better shape and we have a better understanding of that, and we have these better meters, and we're going to be able to get a lot closer. So that's
That
our
would be
intention.
good. But I thought we'd, bring this up to you guys.
okay, are there any other additional presentations? Seeing none, are there any other rebuttals? Okay. Hearing closed. Any bio break or anything like that? I call August 2nd City Council meeting for the city of Deerheart to order. Are there any declarations of interest?
No.
No? No. Okay. We're going to move on to the approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting of the city council on Wednesday, July 5th. Motion or corrections?
I move that we approve the regular meeting of the city council Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes. Now on to the work session of the city council on Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. Any corrections or discussion?
No, I move that we approve the minutes from the work session of the city council from Wednesday, July 12th, 2023.
Second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty, moving on. Now we're to the planning commission report. Everyone got one in their package. Is there any questions or discussion you wish to direct toward Chad? None? All right. Mayor's report. I met with several individuals, one being Chief Gregory, the other being Peter Watts. These are not personal, but some of them are. Personal meetings or phone conversations. They weren't personal for me or anything like that. Sorry. I didn't want that to sound like I was having personal meetings over issues I have. I have no issues. Yes. I live a blessed life, as they say. All right, we're gonna go on to councilors' reports. Preston Devereaux, you're up.
Well, we had Alex Reichel and gal that does the hazmat testing down this last week, and Chad and I met with them, and we've got sort of a plan as to how we're going to approach the demo and the what sort of costs are going to be involved, and they're going to work up a program after we do the hazmat testing. Is that correct? Yes. And we've got, not to exceed. Chad's given them a number not to exceed a certain amount of money in order to be able to do the testing, and then from there we're going to go on and see what sort of a plan we can get. There was discussion about leaving the floor as it is. We've got to get core testing done on the core drilling for what's underneath this sand dune right here. And we were thinking, since it's a hollow tile building and it's non-reinforced, well, then you could probably take the roof off and put out and go ahead and just run a cat over the top of the hollow tile and use that as the fill, keep it on site, and that way we would save money and not having to haul it off. So anyway, Alex was, he has some good ideas. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion. So.
Yeah. Fire station.
Okay. That it?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Preston. Rita.
Well, I went to the monthly meeting of the Clatsop Regional Housing Task Force, and all the cities in the county were represented. We had a Viviana from Clatsop Community Action who talked to us about the two homeless project that they have going on, one at Columbia Inn in Astoria and one at the Esperanza Village right across from the old high school. So that was real informative, and I was glad to see in our packet that we all have signed the MOU to band together to apply for the grant. That was nice. And we also had a bench committee, but I'm going to have Councilor Sharon talk about that, and that's it.
All right. And I'll go with Sharon next.
Okay, couple things. As Rita mentioned, the bench committee, we've met approximately once a week and are narrowing down our choice of benches. We have a style picked that is a very basic but functional style made out of recycled plastic. But we're also wondering if perhaps it might be too basic for the downtown area, so we may pick a little bit nicer style for the downtown area. And we're just pricing things out at this point and talking to companies and moving along. Kathy Zimmerman located all of the existing benches and is putting them on a map that Chad furnished to us. a large map. And then the next step will be to assess where new benches can go. So that's it, that's where we're at with that. Our community emergency response team continues to work towards putting out a questionnaire for Gerhart residents regarding what emergency supplies or abilities they might have. We're trying to put this together citywide so that both the CERT team and the fire department have that information in the event of an emergency. They know where there might be, you know, this or that or the other, boats, chainsaws, generators, medical personnel. There's a long list on the inventory. This information from the Gerhart residents that we obtained will not be publicized. It'll be kept in-house for emergency use only. That should be, I think, going out with the water bills and put on the blog, is that correct also?
Christie had mentioned you were,
Yeah.
had talked to her about putting it on the water bills for sure.
Okay, great. And secondly, our fire department liaison, James Hutchinson, is leaving us for hopefully greener pastures. James has been a liaison for, I don't know, 2 to 3 years at least. He's done a wonderful job. He's been incredibly helpful. He's very knowledgeable. He's answered a lot of questions for us. And so I would just like to publicly thank him and say that we will sorely miss him. That's it.
Thank you, Sharon. All right,
Okay, so start off with shout outs. This month I was approached by a couple of citizens that wanted to thank Rita and Sharon and tell me what a great job that you all were doing and how excited they were about the bench committee progress that you're making. So there you go. I am not going to steal the chief's thunder, but I'm particularly happy with our new chief, the new chief Josh. I don't know how we're getting Josh 1 and 2 or the new Josh, the old Josh, I don't know. But anyway, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'll let you tell us about the good work that you've been doing. But in addition to the town hall meeting, I met with citizens who were concerned about the issues related to the water. One of them is Deanna and some other folks, and some of the topics that she's already discussed were, concerns about the water pipes. Some people are concerned that we're going to be terminating agreements and that we're not going to be able to recreate those agreements, or that we're in some type of that we don't have the amicable and productive discussions with Warrenton, and that is not at all the case. We also wanted to, as we talked with Deanna, not all of this, some people were bringing up an old report from the early 1970s, and water pipes, they have been replaced, and Mark McFadden feels that we're in pretty good condition. And a lot of people, there's been a lot of traffic online about water main breaks, and in talking with Mark, he explained to us that there have been a number of breaks over the last couple of years or in the past that were related to contractor error, people either digging where they shouldn't have been digging or running over hydrants and that kind of a thing. There's only in recent, meaning the last couple of years, there's only been one water main break that they actually had to repair. And that's not to say that we don't have to pay attention to that and that we don't share those concerns. I just, I don't know why this keeps popping back up, that we're having a number of water main breaks, because that's not the case. We talked about a regional plan that was discussed as far as utilizing Astoria's untapped water rights that happened in the past, and some of the reasons why that didn't occur then and may not be able to occur now. I guess the cost for the infrastructure and other things related to that would have been cost prohibitive back in those days, and approximately 20 years ago or however long ago it was. So you can imagine how much more it would cost now. When we have ODOT telling us that just to put a roundabout out here would cost us, what was it, 4.4 million? I think in the reports what they said, so I mean, all things being relative, it always increases. But we are gonna continue to communicate with the surrounding cities around us. We still have we're still in good terms with them. More particularly, the people that manage our water are on good terms with all of the people managing water in our surrounding communities. And everybody has the same goal, and that's to provide enough water to support growth and our needs in Clatsop County, while still protecting the environment. There's an upcoming small cities LOC meeting in Warrenton on Friday, which I will be attending. And I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Dana. All right, we're gonna go to city officer reports, and Chief Gregory, you're up.
Good evening. Start off by saying it's been the second. I haven't been able to get the stats together yet for the month of July, the official stats. Me and will be in tomorrow. We're gonna work on that together. We'll get that to you soon. We did have 55 cases taken in the month of July from various things. We'll get that to you. Also would like to echo about Hutch. I've known Hutch for about a month, and he's probably done 10 things for me since I've been here. He's nothing but helpful, so I wish him the best of luck as well. Lexipol, I know you guys have, part of my hiring plan was that Lexipol needs to come into place. And I could not agree with that anymore, or more than new. So I have been working hard to get that ball rolling. And I believe the initial talk that Sergeant Brown had with Lexipol put the cost up somewhere around 20 grand for them to come in, start Lexipol up for us and get that ball rolling. After I spoke with our rep a couple times, he understood that, you know, we want to be able to make it cost effective for the city, and the best way to do that. So basically, Lexipol starts with 5 tiers, with tier 1 and 2 being the most important high risk, high liability policies that you need. For instance, use of force, pursuit policies, things of that nature. Lexipol had offered to work with me, have a representative just assigned to our agency, and build tiers 1 and 2 with me, allow me to see how that's done, work with them hand in hand, and then I would personally add the lower risk and liability policies 3 through 5, tiers 3 through 5. This cut the cost down significantly to about 12.5. So it's, I was very pleased about, but I do know that there were grants out there available for such a thing. So I contacted with Justine's help. She pointed me in the right direction and contacted CIS and was able to secure us a grant that's a 50% reimbursement grant. So once we pay the 12.5-ish, they will come in and write us a check for his path. And so I'm going to be speaking with our rep next week and getting that started up. So I'm hoping that it's a 9, let's just think 6 months to a year to really get the whole thing going. But there's no time like present for that. So I believe that's very important, and our policy needs to be updated. So any questions about this?
No, it's great.
Okay.
Just so we're clear, so everybody understands what Lexipol is. It's a policy, yeah.
Yeah, so every, as you would imagine, every police department must have policy and in place that guides what we can and cannot do. And there's also procedures that are supplements to said policies. Lexipol has been around, started by Gordon Graham. His tagline is, if it's predictable, it's preventable. So he has started this company years ago, decades ago. And what they do is they have advocates, they have legislative, people in legislation working together in each individual state. And they sit there every day and go through all the policies, and they update policies for agencies that are on board with their thing. And also it's all online, brings everything together. It also provides what's called a daily training bulletin, which allows the officers to go in and have a quiz every day. Just one question, they open it up, they look at it, ask a question. It would be, correspond with a certain policy. They answer it, if they get it wrong, oh, no, try this. But what it does is it allows them to sign it as well. And so we have that accountability from the officers and myself that we're signing these things and not acknowledging that we know what the policy is for our agency. So it's just it's a step in the 21st century for policies for policing.
Yeah, and this is huge, because as much as this is gonna cost us, this has the potential to save us so much.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
In this day and age, you have to have good policies and you have to have well-trained officers, so.
That's it. And also one of the things that it leads you towards accreditation. Most accrediting entities will not accredit an agency unless they have like a bulletin board or something similar or above.
So are these proscribed behavior standards for you guys?
Yeah, this is our directives. Think of it as that. If we get into, an officer learns throughout his time, what if he gets in these different situations. For instance, I said use of force, Graham v. Connors is the number one use of force case law, and it goes deep into that and make sure that our policies follow that, not only federally, but in the state of Oregon as well.
Okay. What is CIS?
City, county insurance services. Yes.
They're the ones that would defend us if we were sued.
Yes.
So Gordon's an interesting character. I don't know if you're gonna work directly with him, but he's an interesting character. But the great thing about his organization is they have people that are doing what we don't have the time and resources to do, and they're constantly looking for what stupid thing did officers do somewhere else that we can learn from and then implement the rules and teach our folks, don't do that. Do this is better, so.
And what's best is they'll send that in an email and they'll say, hey, here's this stuff, by the way, acknowledge you read it. So you can't just skim by and act like you didn't see it.
Yeah. Because it's not enough just to have the policies, you have to have an understanding.
What's the difference between being accredited and not being accredited?
Accreditation, I'll say this, I've never worked for an accredited agency. I know that it's a seal of approval, you can think of it as that way. It makes sure that this body makes sure that you are always following the highest of standards. And you have to show that annually that you're not straying away from those standards, and you're within what's acceptable. Now, it doesn't mean that other agencies that aren't accredited are not that way. We all have guidelines and case law and policies that we must follow. It's just that extra leveling up that it allows. I believe it may even give insurance breaks. I'm not 100% sure on that, but there's local perks that you get as well along the way.
It could be, it helps if there is litigation, demonstrating that, first of all, demonstrating that this is a priority and that people have been through the training, and also that they were following best practices. So like a pit maneuver, you're not supposed to drive more than 40 miles an hour to do one. So if someone does one at 35 miles an hour, then they're within that accreditation and within that training. So it's that sort of, it creates defenses for a city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
Great, okay. Second, first, Josh.
I didn't know we're up to his level, so don't. Before we get into my report, please talk about Lexical. Fire department has Lexical. I'm glad mine only costs $1,700 a year, not nearly what his costs. But it's the same thing. They have policies for fire. When you go off lights and sirens, how you use the internet type of thing. And they even have things for career departments of how they even take the engine to go shopping and stuff. So there's a policy on everything. And then you
Take the engine to go shopping.
on shift crews, like ones that are 24 hours on.
Thank you.
So that's why I said like for career department. So they'll have a policy for every step of what ones to do, and then you take them and you tailor them to how it will work for our agency. Hope that helps and go through. So it's good that they're going through with that. Stats for last month, we had 114 calls for the month of July. 56 was in the city, 47 in the district. We sent out 11 times. Once was to Astoria for structure fire, 5 to Seaside for various things. A couple times they did extra manpower and medical call, 2 structure fires and a large motor vehicle accident. Went to Warrenton 3 different times, 2 brush fires and once they needed extra manpower. Cannon Beach structure fire, and then we were mobilized through the governor's office an order from the governor's office for the Golden Fire in Bonanza for mobilization for that. We received aid twice, again, other for brush fires, ODF comes, standard on every single brush fire we have, just as a back us up. We help get it under control and extinguished once it's in mop-up phase. We hand it to them, because then they'll sit on it much longer than we are making their volunteers back home from that. And how that compares to last year and last July last year. In July 2022, we had 89 calls. So this year, July, we had 25 more calls for this year. July 2022, we ended on call 410. We ended July of 2023 on call 423. So we're now 13 calls ahead of last year's stats from that. And unless anybody else has any other questions for me, the last thing I'll say is yes, today is Division Chief Hutch's last day. He's done great things for us, things that I couldn't have done on my own to the department. He's got, I know he has 4 applications in other departments and he's kind of waiting to call back on there. So he's hoping he'll move on to greener pastures and a much bigger opportunities and bigger departments he's waiting on from there. So it'll be a good thing for him. Go for that. So he'll be greatly missed. Things that we couldn't have done on our own without him here. So he's done great things for us. Look at that. So unless there's any questions, that's my report.
I have a really dumb question. No, it's true. So when you say you had 114 calls for service, that includes inside the city, inside the district, sent aid and received aid?
So received aid is counted in that. So the 114 calls is the ones inside the city, inside the district, and the sent aid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Justine, you're on.
So we're already 1 month into the new fiscal year. I can't believe it. It feels like we were just in June. In revenues, the marijuana and transient root tax are our strongest revenues this month, and they both came in almost exactly on target. I think transient tax was $56 off of last year. So although we would like to see it increase, still having it stay very strong is helpful since it is our second largest revenue source. We've also received the funding for the temporary summer staff grant, which is the 10-0089. It's in the general fund. So Josh had mentioned we get that grant. This was the second year we've gotten it. And so they're able to have some additional firefighters filling in. And we have already received that money. In expenditures, in July, the city pays our annual workers' compensation premium, which is divided between different salary classifications, as well as our property liability auto insurance premium, which is CIS, Sharon. And that's divided between the general fund and the water fund. The July 1st budgeted COLA of 8.7 has been implemented on our salaries. It was approved on our salary schedule, so that wasn't anything new. And we do base that on the Social Security Administration COLA. Our PERS rates have also increased July 1, so the new biennium comes in for PERS. So the employer rates have gone up there. In Fund 20, the first regularly scheduled debt service interest payments are made. Our other payments are due in March. So that's the first set is just 2 interest payments. In Fund 60, purchase service payment was made for engineering work on our sidewalk allotment grant. We're still working on that grant. We got $100,000 over a year ago, and so we're still working on that, and the engineering is now done. So we'll move to phase 2 of implementing and hopefully seeing some work done on that. In Fund 71, a purchase service payment was made to assist in the analysis of water rates, which you guys did approve in December of 2022. So a little delayed, but still happening. July was the first month with our new building fund, Fund 40. So this is a brand new fund to us. It used to be in the general fund, but now it's pulled out. The state has put a lot more stringent requirements on third-party building official agreements, and we fall in that category because our building inspector is not one of our staff members. So they are getting very critical about ensuring that building revenues and building expenses are going towards building. So we have pulled that out into a special fund instead of lumping it with our general fund. So we will need to track that very closely and watch it, because we need to make sure that revenues are actually meeting our expenditures. So that will be an interesting year. This is our first year. The city is working on a job description, salary schedule evaluation project. We looked at a couple of different companies to help us with this, and we have begun some work with Bullard Law, and they specialize in employment law and have done a lot of extensive work with public entities. And so they've reviewed our current job descriptions, and they will help us get them uniform. So the mandatory requirements that are required of those job descriptions, and they will help us get any that we're missing. And they will help us do a little bit of salary schedule research to see if we're in alignment and our positions look like where other market, how the market's looking, and if we're compatible. As part of the project, they will also be providing an evaluation training. So in September, they will meet with our supervisors, and they will go over how to use the job descriptions, how to use the employee handbook, and how to implement employee evaluations. Yes, we do realize that each department has very specific things that they will also be looking for in the evaluation process, but we need to at least standardize the basics of what to look for, how to use the job description and translate it over. So they'll be helping us with that. Our auditors will be here at the end of the month. So they will come and work on our audit that's due by December. And after that's done, we do hope to start focusing on a more comprehensive water ordinance. And we want to look at some different rates that other entities are charging, whether that seems feasible. For us to implement, we want to have an open discussion about how that impacts people. Should we be doing that? Is that good practices? All of those kind of discussions before we put an ordinance in place. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Peter.
Well, I had a great conversation with Josh Soper, who is Warrenton City Attorney. I think that I've mentioned previously that, we've been collaborating on a water agreement. He's been working on that with his colleague Heather Martin, who I've worked with, I think, for 5 or 6 years on different things. We've had there are a variety of reasons why I think Warrenton really wants to go with a shorter term deal than what we've had in the past. In part because they may have some, they may have a water growth coming up soon, and they need to ensure that they have sufficient water. And they're gathering data in the same manner that we are. And I think until everybody understands exactly what's available and the kind of complexities of things, that they'll want to continue to do shorter term agreements. That doesn't mean that we aren't committed to long-term cooperation. We 100% are. And that's kind of how it happens in this county, whether it's police providing support to other agencies or fire or cities. That's what's occurring. They view it, he said they viewed it as a very good thing that we're trying to gather data to see if we can pull additional water. And that is part of the way that we're demonstrating good faith to them, understanding that they have concerns related to their own water users. They're aware that we're their first customer, of course, and that they've got pipes in our streets. They're trying to come up with something equitable for not just their users that are paying warranted taxes. They have a lot of users that are outside of the city that receive city water. And so they have obligations to their ratepayers, and as they're kind of sorting through that data, I would, I believe we'll continue to collaborate. I told him that if and when we did go out asking for more water rights, that I'd probably be asking for a letter of support from them. And of course, that's not a commitment he can make, but he told me he understood exactly why I would be asking for that, and that when the time was right, that's certainly something that would be on their agenda. So I think there's been a lot of, oftentimes during a negotiation, the opening salvo is people trying to see what they can get and us discussing what we can give them, and that happened here. And then we got down to brass tacks, and we have something similar to what we've had in the past. And so, yeah, I was really surprised to hear from some people that there was kind of a narrative of I don't know what to call it, some sort of adversarial relationship. And I told Josh, and he said, well, if there was, that was news to him. So he's like, I never thought you were adversarial. I was like, well, I didn't either. So we had a meeting of minds there. So at least the two lawyers can agree that we're not being adversarial. So that is what I got. And also, I am really happy that the county is going out for a grant to look at some of the housing capacity issues. When our census came back, our growth was 4 times what Portland City predicted. Seaside, I believe, was 10 or 11x, and every city in the county, with the exception of Cannon Beach, far exceeded Portland State's projections. And so, in order to do long-term planning, you need accurate information. And I hope that we'll get that grant and we'll be able to get some accurate information so that we can figure out things like how much water do we need and how to pay for it. And one final thing on water and pipes and how those get built generally is when a development happens. So any sort of planned unit development, those pipes aren't constructed by the city or paid for by the city. They're paid for by the developer, as are the streets and as is the sidewalk. So that's not money out of our account. We do not get that as our infrastructure until the plat is recorded. So when the plat is recorded, at that point, what were private pipes and private streets and private conduit can become, if we accept it, city pipes and city streets and city conduit. So I have heard some people say, why would the city be paying for new pipes if we have current pipes that need to be replaced? And the short answer is we're not. So we're not, if someone were to come in and build a subdivision, we're not paying for those pipes. They're paying for those pipes, and any system development charges that they owe are paid to.
Thank you, Peter.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Was there any discussion about us being out of town water purchasers versus being in town water purchasers in the future?
No, I think, they have fiduciary obligations to their ratepayers, much as we have fiduciary obligations to ours. And, what I would say is that right now we're maintaining their pipes that are within our city. And we're, adding some redundancy into their system. And those are reasons why, we should perhaps pay a lower rate than unincorporated class of the county water buyers, because we may not, there can be a discussion about, who should pay what, but we are contributing more than some of their other water buyers. The good thing about a 1-year agreement or a series of 1-year agreements is that we can have those conversations as we get more data. And once our meters are in and we can do smoke testing and other ways to make sure we don't have, it's very common in cities that I represented, in order to make sure that we're not losing water. So there are a couple things that need to happen before those tools are very effective, but once those things happen, then we can use those tools. So in addition to exploring whether we can get more water, conservation measures are going to be important, and I would expect those will happen too. And I let him know that.
So in your discussions, I realize that the workforce housing problem that we've got in this county and the low income housing that we've availability in this county, it's a countywide problem. Warren is the one that has all the land. So, they're trying to look after their water, rights and everything else like that. Has there been a discussion about they're gonna drop their resistance to us increasing our well field?
So what I asked for him was that when it came time for us to make the ask, if we do, that we would like a letter of support from them. And he, he indicated my view and his view is that by going and trying to get more water, we're demonstrating that we're trying to be a good partner to them. And again, we don't know exactly how much growth is going to need to happen. There could be a day where we were selling water to Warrenton. It's possible. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but anything's possible. And then the other thing that I noted is every house that gets built makes other houses more affordable, in my experience, and every house that doesn't get built makes other houses more expensive. So in a market that's functional, and an extreme example would be Detroit. People are able to buy a house in Detroit for a fraction of what that house costs to build, and that's just classic supply and demand. So because we are on septics, we're not able to generally build at the same level of density as some other jurisdictions. And so there's this narrative where I don't know where it comes from, where they're like, well, you're not doing your part. And we are doing our part, because every house that we build means a house isn't being, classic workforce housing isn't being built, being bought, and then having a massive addition in order for it to be someone's home. And I would also say we structured our short-term rentals in order to protect workforce housing, so that when those folks that have been doing it sell their house, it's no longer a short-term rental. And so I would say to the people critical of us is understanding our lack of land and our septic issues. Well, what could we do?
Well, first of all, the land costs here in the Gearhart area are probably the highest apart from Cannon Beach. So, if you're paying $350,000 or $400,000 for a lot, and then you're putting a house up on it, you're automatically out of the workforce housing. So there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there is no discussion about that. Logically,
Right.
that's why I'm saying Warrenton has the land, and they've got the water, and that's where all your workforce housing is going to be. Seaside doesn't have any land to put workforce housing in. They won't let them do it on the high school property. Cannon Beach doesn't have any land, so to speak. So, it's going to be either be the plains, and as you go up the land, if you have a subdivision in the plains, the lot sizes, the cost on the lot sizes, because you're at the beach west of Highway 101, you're going to be paying $400,000 for a goddamn lot.
Right. And, I'm working, I was on a conference call with DLC staff and other state agencies, and that's why I was a few minutes late on my way here. And, the only variables in building housing are the cost of the dirt and the SPCs. The cost per square foot is generally the same, right, and all that. And so unless you can bring down the cost of the dirt, you're not contractors won't be able to make a profit when they build a house.
No.
Like and one of the problems with having the buildable land inventory that we had, where the population growth was far less than the reality is, people always think, well, if you have one of those buildable lands inventories where you're short, that means you're gonna have to expand your UGB. And that's not the case. The two ways under state law where you can meet that is rezone or expansion or both. And so when you talk about properties that they would be under a higher best use in some other zoning, in order to change that zoning to a residential zoning, you need to be able to make those findings. And with our last buildable lands inventory, it said we had sufficient land in the county. So we couldn't expand our UGB and we also couldn't rezone. And all that's gonna do is drive land costs up.
Yeah, but the available land for housing is all in Warrenton.
Yeah, we don't have it.
Okay, that's what I think that people need to understand.
We've tried a variety of tools to try and get some additional land for housing, but I don't want to go down that. We were having such non-controversial meetings, so I'll just leave it at that. We're trying. The record shows we're trying.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Workforce housing, Gerhart has done, its part when it can. If you look at the Paul Falvey project on Gerhart Loop, AKA Gun Club, we changed the residential zoning there to allow for more building. He intends to do that. Also, we were very proactive in working with the Johnson family on the apartments that were across the highway from the liquor store, and helping them through the conditional use process with that and making some accommodations so that it was more affordable for the people that were going to be renting there. So we're doing our part, and Garrett Phillips will be here a little bit later this evening. He's online now to talk more about the next steps. James Hutchinson, I am going to miss him a lot, but we're going to keep in contact. James has been like a little brother to me. He started here as a cadet while he was in high school. I think he was a sophomore, but I'm not so sure. And he grew into a fine man and an excellent firefighter. So looking forward to seeing what the world brings to him moving forward. Bench I did make contact with the state of Oregon, and I have a contact for us in regards to potentially moving our benches forward. So I'll give you that information and talk to you more about that here soon. Benches are behind the dunes because of the accretion. We may be able to get those pushed up a little bit to get those views back. So I'll be working with the bench committee on that. Wildfire and Pacific Power. I might be getting ahead of things a little bit here, but there's a piece of correspondence that is coming up. But it was from Elisa Dunlap. Now, Elisa works with Pacific Power, and she actually lives here in town as well. And she is the governmental liaison for Pacific Power, and she is there any time of year. She's been fantastic. She called me and sent me an email about a change that they're making to wildfire safety precautions, and this will affect the residents in Gerhart. Essentially, because of a lot of the fires that have been happening in California, Oregon, and others, the power companies have really been focused upon in their power supply systems and how they can affect, start, or cause trouble during fires. So Pacific Power has changed their settings on their systems so that when we have a power loss during fire season, the system that they have is going to be set to a more sensitive setting, so that rather than our power going out and coming right back on, what's going to happen is if the power goes out for various reasons, whether it be wind or a tree down or something else, especially during the summer, they're not going to turn the power back on until they can get eyeballs on that situation, that line, and that situation. Once they know what's going on and that it hasn't created a fire or another hazard, then they will re-energize the system. So all these years, Pacific Power has been really working hard to create a loop system so that our power outages are much less. This is going to increase our power outages. Now, the Pacific Power is letting the communities and the residents within their communities know on an individual basis through the billing system. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that those things will be coming to you in your mailbox. Yes, ma'am.
Well, could our fire departments make that assessment for them, or do they need to be on site as well?
They're working on that. Our fire departments at this point are not included in the assessment, unless it was something that happened very here locally, then we can report on it. But they are putting together a team of people, assessors, if you will, whether or not they have a firefighter background and being linemen as well, is kind of the direction they're headed.
I mean, does this seem like a safer plan? Or does this seem like they're just covering their behinds?
Both. If you look, when they were, the California wildfires, it was the power companies that I think took a lot of the responsibility and ended up paying a lot of money out. So Pacific Power is reacting to that liability, but they're also, Pacific Power has always had safety in mind. They're a very safe, conscious
I can
company.
just make a comment. Remember a couple of months ago, I saw, she was one of the folks, I believe, that made the presentation to Warrenton when I went to their city council meeting on this. And one of the things that they said was that they are now actively using not only their own employees, but independent contractors to help them to address. And that is the reason why we have gotten better over the last few years as far as our power outages going out and the power coming back on fairly quickly. And so, I mean, if that's helpful to you at all, I don't know, but they are not going, we're not going to be relying just on them. They are increasing their workforce, their resources that they can throw at this when the power does go out, so.
The mayor and I did meet, with Dana, with Ms. Dana Mansell, and we appreciate your time and thank you for kind of bringing some information and for us. So we appreciate that.
That's good.
Vacation rentals, nothing really to report other than I did a panel at a real estate continuing education conference. And the goal of that panel was to discuss different towns. And in this case, it was Cannon Beach, Seaside, and Earhart, to tell the state agents what makes these communities different and what their take on short-term vacation rentals is. It was an educational process to help them through that. And that really helps with communication and stops a lot of the miscommunication that can happen. After that, other things have already been picked up. I don't have anything else unless there's some questions.
Question on the RFP, when did it go out? Sidewalk RFP.
It's being finished. It's going to be going out here soon. I don't think it's been on the website yet. No, we're still working out some details with John Forrester and that, but we just got the final design week and a half ago, so they'll be going out soon.
Okay.
I have a question. The noxious vegetation citations, what was noxious?
Mostly Scotch broom or things growing into other people's yards. And so what Angelina's been doing is going around and inspecting some places and slowly just kind of getting out reminders to folks to go ahead and clean up the system. I don't think we've had any violations issued. We work with people first.
So no fines yet?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, and I don't think we're heading in that direction right now. Maybe people have been really responsive.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, I got a couple of things that were brought to my attention. The PWs were working on Pacific Way just down the street with the backhoe. What were they doing?
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
No.
Okay,
Just a
just
minute.
one citizen mentioned that they left a bunch of vegetation in the street.
They did. They cut a swath along Pacific Way on either side of the Neocoxy, east and west. They trimmed a bunch of the bushes back. And they kind of left a mess.
Okay.
I mean,
This was brought to my attention just
Okay, we'll look into it. Not sure where they are. on the
I'd
budget,
suggest, you
but
know,
We'll figure it out.
clean up a little bit afterward would be handy for some people. The other thing is, in correspondence, we've got, well, we're not there yet, so we'll go to public visitors. We have none. So now we'll go to public communication, and we have this recology rate corrections. And there were 3 things that they missed when they came to us and told us about their rate increase, which is perfectly legal and something that they've done and we don't need to do anything about, but there were 3 cans or 2 cans and a 1-yard rental trash container that was left off their list. And so it's a change of 10 cents on 2 of them and 80 cents on the trash bin. So we're just allowing that to go through without having any kind of discussion or anything like that, because it was just obviously a slight error of 10 cents.
And Mr. Mayor, just to let you know that that affects about 17 customers in Europe. So not very many.
Right, okay, well, it's still 10 cents, it's gonna. Anyway, is there anyone else who would like to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda? May do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. I have none. Does
I'd
that,
like to speak, but if you're not going to allow me to speak, I'll, save it for another time.
I'll let you speak again.
Okay, it's in regards to the letter that is in your packet.
If we could get your name and address. one
Oh,
more
okay,
time.
I'm sorry, it's
That's all right.
Deanna Mansell, 2945 Highway 101 North. Since I talked with Chad and Dana last week, I had a couple additional things that I'd like to comment on my letter that you guys aren't aware of. I handed Chad the Nicanica River analysis for the mouth of the Nicanica. It dictates how much water is being used, for municipal, domestic. It showed the stream flow and everything. It showed that during the months of July through October, there was a net water deficit. And then the very last part of the document that I didn't realize was that I had mentioned to Chad that the Oregon Water Resources Department actually has an in-stream water right at the mouth of the Nicanica, and it goes clear up to Highway 53. But the water at the mouth of the Nicanica is protected water for fish and other aquatic species. And so they took all of the remaining water out of the mechanical watershed and used that for their in-stream water right. And so the point I'm trying to make is that when Gerhart got their allocation from Water Resources Board back in 2008, they used that information to give us a limited water supply during the summer months. They did the same thing with Camp Rylea, who are also, on Neocoxie Creek. The DEQ and ODFW were very concerned about what would happen if we happen to pump a full water right out of our aquifer, which is it's really dry right now. You can look at Neocotchee Creek, you can look at the lakes, and you can see those bodies of water are super low. It's because the aquifer is trying to recharge, refill itself, but it's doing it from taking it from the streams. And so the DEQ is really concerned about the pumping of extra water during the summer. So between the 3 government agencies, we got the limited water. And personally, the way things are with the endangered salmon and with water resources, having that water right down there at the mouth, I really don't think we'll probably get a water right. Chad, you should check out, it's 500 pages of stuff from 2008, and I read through it to refresh my memory. And it's all very complex, and you really, have to, read that document and see what they're saying. Talk to water resources, but don't spend a whole bunch of money, like Kennedy Jenks was spinning their wheels and ended up costing the city a lot of money. And if they had started the process before, this all happened, before I generated a stack of paper like that, the city would have saved a lot of money. So it's something that you guys should investigate. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Deanna. All right, and so that brings me to the holy cow of being in this position. There are other letters on the backs of these papers, which to me, I missed entirely. So we have an Oregon Heritage SHPO draft of 2024-2034 Oregon Historic Preservation Plan open for comment. And this is from Ian Johnson of OPRD. And they're inviting comment on their draft Oregon Historic Preservation Plan at, holy cow, www.oregon.gov/oprd/OH pages/tools.aspx. See the menu, open for comment. And it's under the Oregon Heritage and SHPO plans. And so this is for people that want to make comments on their preservation plan. And do we have this on the?
Is it on the blog?
I'm just
That
asking,
link.
is this on the blog? It is on the blog. Thank goodness. Because I couldn't say that again. And Deanna, your letter's in here on the back side of this one. And then there's a letter from Jack Zimmerman. And that's it for written correspondence. And I apologize, I did not realize we had all those letters. Is there anybody else that wants to address the council at this time with an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 990, adjusting water rates in the city of Gerhart. Chad, will you read the synopsis?
You want me to read the entire synopsis?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'll paraphrase, sir. So we talked a little bit about this. We've had a couple of meetings. We've done a town hall meeting that I think was really successful. Basically, the staff have written resolution 990 to take care of the 15% increase, including the meter installations at this point. The options are to resolve to approve resolution 990, which would go into effect immediately, make changes, or take another action. And the staff does recommend council approve resolution 990. And there's a recommended motion at the bottom of the page. There is some financial analysis that is good. Those are things that we agreed to that the city would do moving forward, including transferring money annually, how to update this plan, when to go through the budgeting process, and how to move forward with water rates in the future. So, any questions?
Are we gonna revisit this every year?
Yeah, so on the back, it does say that. Begin transferring water, consider rate increases annually to cover rising costs and achieve a 90-day operating expense reserve in 3 to 5 years. So we have the duty to do it, and then we have the level at which we need to achieve. So also talks about increasing the water reserve account, growing working capital, increase the water reserve account to fund future projects and conservation projects.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve if someone wishes to do that.
Well, I'll move to approve resolution 990 to increase the water rates and tapping fees in Earhart by 15% for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
Second, now, open for discussion. Is there any discussion? I have a question. You have an increase in the tapping fee. Is it the same for someone who takes a 3/4 inch line and goes to an 1.5 inch line? Because they're not tapping, they're just increasing the size.
No, typically what we do is we charge them time and materials if they're going to change out their meter. We don't do too many of those. Justine, do you have any other?
I know that we do, we charge them, invoice them, Marcus as a fee for any additional fees. I can't think of this happening.
Yes, but we would, if somebody requested a bigger meter or even some other kind of change out, we're going to make sure time and material is covered.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
We don't need to read this. Except for section 3 possibly, so people are aware that we are repealing.
Yes. Mr. Mayor and Council, section 3 lays out that this repeals ordinances number 429, 852, and 874. They're all repealed in their entirety. Any city ordinance and a resolution or parts of ordinances or resolutions in conflict herewith are also hereby repealed.
Thank you. Just so we're clear on what we've just done, what we just did. I don't know what my English is on that one. Is it there or done? We have. That's amazing. I don't have my wife here to tell me. All right. Don't laugh at that either, because it's true. We'll go on to new business. Anyone wishing to speak at this time on our new business is limited to a 3-minute talk, and it is strictly on the new business. Right now, we're going to the Warrenton Water Mutual Organization understanding. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Anyone on Zoom that wishes to speak, please put your hand up. Having none, we'll move on. Chad, will you do the synopsis for us?
Sure, this is a little shorter one, so I will go through this. City of Deerheart has water purchase agreements with both the city of Warrenton and Seaside. They both expired in 2022, and much of 2023 so far has been spent renegotiating the terms of the extended agreements. The agreement with Seaside is still in negotiations. After multiple drafts and discussion between Warrenton and Deerheart administration, the city of Warrenton approved the attached mutual organization understanding MOU last month. In order for the city of Deerheart to proceed with the agreement, council must make a motion. We have a recommendation that the staff approve entering into this attached memorandum of understanding with the city of Warrenton. There's some legal analysis in there and financial analysis. It's that the city budget was approved based on the terms proposed in the agreement pretty well. We didn't anticipate that the agreement was going to take an additional year before the rates increased, but that benefits the city of Deerheart for us to get caught up a little bit faster. The mutual organizational understanding is attached and has been signed by Mayor Henry Valency. So at this point, we would just need a motion.
I have a question.
Do you have a question? Can we wait until discussion after the motion second?
Yes,
Okay. If I have a motion,
I'll give you a motion to approve entering into the attached water MOU with the city of Warrenton.
second,
I'll second it.
okay, discussion. Rita, you have a question?
I do. Under the MOU, under party obligations to C, that any new building water hookups after the effective date of this MOU beyond one dwelling unit or any new water connections outside Deerheart city limits will require written notification to the city of Warrenton. Will they have the chance to deny it? I mean, if we say, look, we're built here, we have written information for you, we're building 2 new houses. Why do they need written information? I don't know.
All they're doing is being notified that it's being built. It doesn't say anything about stopping anything. It just says they want to be notified
But
outside city limits.
in Deerheart or outside city limit, how far does outside city limits go?
Well, our water only goes to just north of here to what?
Adair
Okay.
Lane, do you know where that is?
Okay, so they don't
That's
have
the
any
furthest
right
we
of
go.
refusal.
No,
Okay, that's all. My question.
sure.
2H, either party may terminate this MOU upon providing 90 days written notice to the other party. What happens if they terminate it? What does that look like?
I can't think of the reasons other than maybe emergencies or what have you, or if they just decide to do that as a council and terminate our agreement. I know that there's some things to go through that. But we would go through our emergency water conservation plan and start conserving water and requiring people to conserve water so that we can work within our parameters, which would be tough.
Maybe
It's been in
Seaside,
summer.
maybe Seaside too.
Yeah, and we do have this agreement working with Seaside, the connection with Seaside. And according to Seaside, they have quite a bit of water, so we're working with that as well.
The issue with Seaside isn't the amount of water, it's just the conduit. So it would be expensive to upsize some pipes. But if we're in a position where we get the 90 days notice, at that point, I guess we would start upsizing pipe on an expedited basis.
Would that go along the highway? Where does that pipe go?
That pipe is right near Sons of Norway. That's where the meter is for that, and it goes across the bridge or maybe underneath. Not sure exactly. But right there on the side of the road on the west side of Sons of Norway.
Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye, please. Aye. All those against? Thank you. Moving on. police officer employment. Chief?
So great news, Jeremiah Perez starts his site tomorrow. And assuming he gets through the psychological exam, he says he will put in his 2-week notice. So we have a projected date around the 20th of August is what I'm assuming when he can start. Sure there's questions, so.
Can you tell us a little bit about him?
He's from California. He moved to Portland when he became an adult. He has a wife, they have a child. He moved from Portland to the Warrenton area and got on as a reserve firefighter or volunteer. I think he's part-time, if I'm not mistaken. So he is paid part-time. He worked, when he was in Portland, he worked for Providence Security, which I've had a couple of officers I've worked with. They were Providence Security. They do a really good job there. He was actually a defensive tactics instructor for Providence. And they wanted to get out of the city, as a lot of people have, right? So when they came out here, he got on with the fire department, but also he worked full-time with CMH Security in Astoria.
So he'd never been a police officer.
Never been a police officer, just security.
And so what does that look like for you guys? Does he ride around? Does he spend time with you guys to begin with? And if so, how long? And
Great question. So the plan is going to be, when he gets on, he'll spend a couple of weeks with me. He'll get oriented with the city. We'll take him to, he needs to get sworn in because he will be a sworn officer. It's just be a recruit officer. He'll get his qualifications on firearms and taser. And then after that 2 weeks is up for me, he'll start his what's called FTEP, his field training and evaluation program. That is a 25-week long program. It's 5 phases of 5 weeks. So he'll start with him, Sergeant Brown, and then he'll work with him for 5 weeks, and then he'll come to me. And then since we're such a small agency, we don't have a lot of FTOs. So we're gonna share our duties with him to train him. Each is designed, and each step of each phase gets more in depth, and we become more hands-off and allow him to show his skills that he's learning and that he's developed to become an officer, what we say, going to go out.
so you don't let him on his own until after 28 weeks of training, it sounds like.
Yeah, and plus there's also the required 16 weeks of the academy he must go to. And it's the academy date right now. There's a lot of problems with fulfilling agencies all over the state, right? And so the academy is backed up quite a bit. I tried my best to get him into a class, but they wouldn't let me until he takes his psych and passes it. So you just give me a spot, you know, in reserve, and so they would do it.
Who pays for the academy
The
training?
state is funded. It's easy, he gets room and board. He's allowed to leave on weekends. Actually, he's allowed to leave after class anytime he wants to. But since we're so far away, they'll give him a dorm with another recruit, and they'll feed him and take care of him, so. He'll do that process. He also has to complete what's called the field training manual. That's a requirement by DPSST as well to get his basic police certification. That's a binder about that thick. My fingers, if you go any further, I could probably could.
For their tests?
But what it is, kind of, sort of, but when you sit down with a recruit, you go over this page and this page, and each one is an item to do with policing. And it has where the field training officer checks their initials and the officer initials. Again, that checks and balances the acknowledgement that they realize what they have learned, and so has the FTO by saying, yes, he knows what he's doing, or she knows what she's doing. He does have an 18-month probation period from the date of hire. I'm hoping that one thing about the academy, the next academy date is December 18th. That has 55 openings. The one in November is completely booked. One thing about small towns, though, is that when a big agency wants to put in recruits, they may open up for 10, 15 spots. They get those people, but before they go to the academy, they do something stupid, or they back out, or something happens. And they no longer have that spot, well, they'll call the smaller agencies to fulfill that. So fingers crossed he gets into a sooner. But with the shortage right now of officers or, people going to training, it may not work out that way.
Do you feel like he has a good support system while he's away? Having a wife and a little baby, we're gonna make sure that he gets all the support that he needs.
Absolutely.
Bring him to our attention if he needs help.
Absolutely. And my goal is to make him feel like family. He's gonna be able to call any of us if he needs to. We'll be there for him.
You guys are already working on his equipment, right?
Yes, and so the equipment for him, the cost is gonna be roughly $2,000. The uniform will be around 500. It's the vest. These vests are not cheap. They have inner panels, they're designed to save lives, and so they cost that way. So it's about $1,500 for the vest.
Do you know what level you guys? Is it
What
level
level?
3?
Yes, it's level, yes, type.
Do you have, how long do you think that'll take to get in? We'll be able to get that before we put it out there rolling around.
Well, I'm hoping, but it's probably gonna take a while, honestly. So what we may do is we'll contact Canton Beach PD as well as CCIPD and see if they have any extras that we can put him into until it arrives.
Does that vest become his personal property?
No, that vest is property of the city.
So Vince didn't leave us a vest?
He did, but Vince's, it was a bit bigger or larger than Jeremiah.
And not only that, but they
Vince
have
is a
can you
big-
tailor?
big guy, right, like
And
we
they have a lifespan of, you really should be replacing your vests. They
Every
say
5
every
years.
5 years, you might be able to extend it under the best circumstances to 10, but
This one's on year
5 is
7,
really the,
so I'll be trying to get one next year.
I was gonna say, we
Yeah.
need to like create a cycle for that.
Did you bring it out to Cannon Beach?
No, this one came from Seaside. Chief Ham was gracious enough to let me bring it with me. I don't think anybody else would want to wear this, so. Yeah, it's been a lot of sweat and some tears into it, so yeah, it's been rough.
Do you know when was the last time, maybe when was the last time we added a police officer position here? So now this will bring us back to fully staffed at 3.
Vince left 2 years ago.
No, I mean, when did we add the 3rd officer? Because prior to that, we ran. at 2.
10 years ago.
Okay.
So I know what you're asking. So you're asking when did we go from 2 to 3? And when was the last additional position added?
Right.
That was Vince, and that was November 1st of 1995, so 28 years ago. There were 2 officers before. They had some reserve officers as well over time. I remember when I first started in the county, Waddell was working as a paid reserve. That put them at 4, but that was part-time. I think you worked 1 to 2 days a week.
Okay.
So this city of Gearhart had 2 police officers until 1995. So we've had 28 years, a little over a century without an additional one.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, actually, forgot to tell you earlier about cases taken too. We had 133 cases in the year 2022, last year. This year, right now, halfway through, we're at 199.
Wow.
So we've greatly surpassed it. And it's only halfway through.
So you've got the sheriff's department still backing us up?
Absolutely. The sheriff's more than willing. The undersheriff, Paul Williams, he's just been, hey, Paul, I got a doctor's appointment this day. No problem, we'll be there for you. So they're extremely helpful. They understand. They're actually happy because they said they've gotten a lot of face time with the citizens of Gearhart. So they're all on board with this.
So how many of your calls had to do with the homeless situation? Yeah.
So
Houseless, excuse me.
are you talking about this year altogether? Yeah, I didn't have time to break that down. And that was the first thing that came into my mind was the Glen Avenue situation. I would say there were probably 30 or 40 calls that had to do with that. That's a guesstimation. I don't know for sure, but
That would be a percentage of the increase in calls.
yes, it would be a percentage. Yes.
Not only that, but the nature of the calls
Mhm.
changed during that time too. From, I found a dog in my yard to, somebody stole my dog or somebody stole this or somebody's fighting or whatnot. They were just different calls at the time. So,
We're really excited to get to work with Jeremiah Rez and bringing him on board, so
thank you for taking care of that first.
thank you.
Good.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. DLCD Housing Planning Grant.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to turn this over to Garrett Phillips. He helped put this staff report together, and there he is on the bottom right-hand corner. Garrett, would you like to talk a little bit about this, Councilman?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Please speak up if you have any trouble hearing me. My name is Garrett Phillips, and I work for the Columbia River Estuary Study Task Force in Astoria. I'm the City of Gearhart's consulting planner since around January of this year. And I do consulting planning work for other cities in Clatsop County and Wahkiakum County, Washington. The staff report summarizes a grant proposal and a request for your support of the grant proposal. For the last few months, the cities of Clatsop County and Clatsop County have been working together to prepare this proposal to DLCD for consultant support that is going to assist all of the jurisdictions in making real progress towards addressing housing issues in the county. So it's going to do that by providing each city with the opportunity to update its buildable lands inventory, which describes what land is available for building and is a key component, a key input that's used to support decisions on whether to expand an urban growth boundary or whether additional zoned capacity is needed within the existing urban growth boundary. The grant proposal is going to support each of the cities in analyzing and characterizing its existing housing stock. And going beyond that, it's going to provide each city with the opportunity to hone in on part of the city that is considered buildable and complete an analysis on infrastructure readiness and identify additional infrastructure needs that may be needed to actually make that area buildable and ready for housing development, in fact. And so the grant proposal was submitted on Monday. DLCD will announce whether or not the cities of Clatsop County and the county are receiving this award around late October. And the project would begin in November of 2023. It would last about 1.5 years and conclude in April of 2024. There's not any cash that would change hands from the state to the city. A consultant selected by the state would be provided to provide this service to all of the cities together, along with the county. This is a unique opportunity for the cities to participate in this work together and learn from each other, learn from the findings that are uncovered in each city, and start to preview some practices and recommendations that would follow on this analysis work to address housing needs. The proposal is designed to complement other analysis that the state is doing in 2024 that's going to characterize housing demand. So this proposal is in a lot of ways focused on the supply of existing housing, the supply of land, whether or not the land is really ready for housing in terms of infrastructure readiness. The state's going to be doing complementary analysis that describes housing demand for every city in Oregon under an effort or a project called the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis. And so the results of this grant proposal, if the cities are awarded, combined with that work that the state is completing in 2024, will bring together a solid characterization of supply and demand and set up Clatsop County, City of Gearhart, and neighboring cities to take some meaningful actions in the following years towards addressing housing issues. And the range of potential actions is diverse, and it'll be informed by the analysis. So this is a characterization project for now. All of the other cities in Clatsop County are participating, and we've developed the proposal in consultation with the staff from each city and with DLCD staff, and we're really hopeful that it's going to get funded. So what we're asking you for is a motion in support of the Housing Planning Assistance Grant Proposal to DLCD and authorization for the city to participate in the planning process. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Chad has participated in the grant development process among at least a couple of others in the room. So that'll conclude my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Are there any questions for him?
In the first, under the synopsis in the first paragraph, there's a phrase that says coordinated strategies to address housing challenges in Clatsop County. So I was a little confused in reading this, and my question is this going to be suggestions that are made or mandates that are put out that come out of this whole?
Sure. So the completing the analysis and characterization doesn't commit the city to taking one action or another after the project.
So it's suggestions.
There's suggestions, and they're going to be preliminary in nature. The intent of the proposal is to set up Gearhart and the other cities so that they can use this information and the information that's produced by the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis to create a more robust housing implementation strategy for the city of Gearhart, for the city of Seaside, and so on. And at that point, each city becomes a bit more committed to actually taking actions once they go through that whole process, which is a substantial process in its own right to develop housing implementation strategies. But the city of Gearhart's not committed to even doing that by participating in this effort.
Okay. On the second page, under benefits of DLCD housing planning grant, in the first sentence, the phrase City of Gerhart and other municipalities in Clatsop County can leverage valuable resources to address affordable housing challenges effectively. What does that mean? What is leverage?
So the consultant service that would be provided through this grant proposal is valuable and will provide you with valuable information to inform any actions that you want to take in the future in relation to housing. Beyond that, completing this project will make the city of Deerheart and the other cities more compelling applicants for further state funding assistance to complete any project that is meant to address housing and that's supported by the findings of this project. So that could be completing a housing implementation strategy, pursuing an urban growth boundary amendment, or choosing not to do any of those things because maybe the findings of this study will show that you don't need to. We'll try to remain open to any outcomes and the actual analysis that gets completed. But this basically means that you'll be more eligible for additional funding to support future housing efforts.
That's all. I didn't have a question. That's all. Questions?
I have one question. You can go first.
No, go ahead. This is for Karen.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, what you're saying is that if we participate in this, it's not gonna cost us anything more than some staff time feeding information to you as you need it. And yet we might, the benefit that we're going to get from it is somebody's going to give us some knowledge that we might be useful to us in the future and in our planning process, especially considering we're not completely comfortable with some of the information that came out of our previous.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, this is an opportunity to improve on prior work. There's no
Okay.
cash commitment implied by the grant proposal. There is some staff time that will be required to provide information to the consultant. And I would go beyond saying that it might be useful. I really think that it will be useful to inform future decisions.
But there's no obligation from us after this.
Correct.
So is it, I mean, this whole thing, I see that the city of Astoria is the one that initiated this.
The city of Astoria, you could say initiated this because they were facing a deadline in 2024 to complete a housing capacity analysis, which is something that's required of cities with populations greater than 10,000 people. Since that initiation, the city of Astoria has been given an opportunity to delay their deadline because the state rules that dictate how you do a housing capacity analysis are going to change in 2024. And so the state wanted to give them an opportunity to wait for those rules to be finished and to do their housing capacity analysis after 2024. The city of Astoria is still committed to doing this project, and the project is designed to still be a useful input to the housing capacity analysis that they will be required to do later, and to not be redundant with the work that the state's going to be doing for every city in 2024, and to provide them with the flexibility to be responsive to the new rules that are going to be created. So yes, they had an initiating role. I would say Clatsop County had an initiating role as well. And really this whole project came from the Clatsop Regional Housing Task Force and the discussions that group has monthly. So I wouldn't overstate the city of Astoria's sort of initiating force, but they did play an important role there.
But my point is that, I mean, Astoria initiated it, but it's a whole county, it's a whole class of countywide, everybody's involved in this.
Absolutely, yeah, and the Clatsop County is formally the applicant submitting the proposal to DLCD, and Clatsop County staff are going to play the overall project management role. The Clatsop County Housing Manager, Alyssa Gertler, is going to play that role. That being said, the proposal is written in a way where there's checkpoints and communication that's ensured between the consultant and each individual city's staff, and checkpoints with each individual city's planning commission to present preliminary draft findings along the way.
I have a comment. So, hi Garrett, I hope you can hear me. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm reading from my notes. But when Jay Blake was talking about the regional housing capacity analysis, that was targeted allocation for populations, city populations from 2,500 to 10,000. And because Gearhart didn't reach the 2,500, we felt, or I felt, that we weren't included. And I believe that from that meeting came the coalition of all the cities to form into one unit for economies of scale. Is that how I read it, or is that not correct?
Well, I would say that the city of Astoria is the only city that is required to complete a housing capacity analysis and thereafter complete housing implementation strategies because of their population. And the population threshold of 2,500 people doesn't come into play with that requirement. Economies of scale were one of the advantages or one of the factors that were considered in the discussions where, you know, each city lended well, I guess the representatives from each city lended sort of preliminary support or acknowledgement that we should go ahead and keep working on this idea to develop the grant proposal. There's some economies of scale in project management and project administration. Not as many as you might hope for. You know, we're developing this project is going to develop buildable land inventories for each city. Not an overall buildable land inventory that combines all the cities. So in many regards, there's just as much work to do. It's, you know, as if I guess I would just say there's not economies of scale in doing 6 buildable lands inventories compared to together compared to 6 under separate agreements. But I think that one of the main advantages of having the cities do this together is the mutual learning opportunity, and being able to compare and contrast some of the trends, opportunities and constraints that each city is facing.
Thank you.
We'll be able to use this data in all sorts of different ways. I mean, when we're looking at increased call rates, things like that, this will help us quantify some of that as well. And then if you remember, these communities also work together in the National Hazard Mitigation Plan. What was really neat from that is that we all got together, talked about our plans, know how we're going to interact with each other during an emergency and that sort of thing. This is going to have a lot of the same outcome because we understand what the other communities in depth are going through and what they're doing. And that can even help us tailor our situation a little bit better as well.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, so I participated in 2 UGB expansions, one which is completed and one which hopefully will be complete in a year. I've been through this process in multiple jurisdictions, and it is really hard for people that haven't been through one to navigate it, even with the consultant team. And so I think one of the benefits of doing this jointly with the other jurisdictions is that hopefully one or more people who've been through it before and are at the table and assisting. And there are different policy choices that jurisdictions can make. For instance, they look at not just the existing housing, but if there can be more housing, and then should like a multifamily project, they could be built at much higher density. Should that be counted as being available in your buildable land inventory? And most people wouldn't think that existing multifamily or manufactured housing parks, which are naturally occurring affordable housing, are being counted as being available for redevelopment. And so once you understand that, then the collective, I mean, the cities can make their own decisions, but the cities could collectively say, we don't want the existing multifamily housing or manufactured housing parks counted as being available for redevelopment because we want to protect that housing for those individuals. That doesn't mean that they couldn't be redeveloped in the future, but it means that added capacity isn't calculated. So those are the sort of things that if you've been through them, you understand. They can make a tremendous difference. Maybe not for us, but for other jurisdictions. And then the other thing is that the populations were so off on the prior planning that it's basically unusable. So once the plan is acknowledged, if you get a bunch of other data, you can't rely on that other data until that other data is acknowledged. So right now we have acknowledged studies that demonstrate that we have a more than a 20-year buildable land inventory. So we have enough land to meet need for more than 20 years. And again, the population estimates, I think the county hit like the PSUs. I think they hit more than 20 years. We could have hit 40. So don't hold me to that. Just in the last 10 years between the census. But again, we don't have the ability right now to do any sort of major rezone. And again, less applicable to us in other cities. But this hopefully will allow some of those conversations related to housing and how can we meet the needs as a county to occur. And then hopefully jurisdiction will have some flexibility to make some decisions that will either allow more land to come in or to rezone like a failing commercial development that is already served by water and all those other things. That would make a lot more sense for maybe dense apartments than on the outer fringe of the city. So those are the benefits I personally see.
Peter, I mean, I'm reading through this, I mean, every single paragraph, I just say, what about water? Yeah, that's gonna drive everything.
Yeah, I represented the city of Damascus, and what I have learned is that proximity to urban services is one of the #1 reasons the development happens or doesn't happen, because Damascus was miles away from water or sewer. So the cost of connecting it was incredibly significant. This sort of thing, if we talk about it, if Seaside has water capacity, this is the sort of study that then might allow state funds to be available to hook municipalities up to each other so that we can rely on the redundancy in the system and the flexibility, which is one almost as I feel compelled to talk about an area that didn't end up coming into the city's UGB, but connecting multiple water systems to each other creates safe water. So if we can have that sort of redundancy in the system, we can meet safety needs. In order to do that, though, we would need to demonstrate to the state that it's a logical investment of state funds doing that connectivity. And with our current data, we can't. We can demonstrate that it's really wrong, that data based on the 2020 census and based on the fact that nature preserves were counted as being available for housing development. But we can't, there are some very clear mapping errors in our city we're aware of. I assume similar in other cities, but we can't do anything with the data until it's acknowledged.
All right, any other questions? would someone like to make a motion to authorize our participation in this collaborative effort with the county and neighboring cities?
I'll give you a motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a motion and it's collaboratively participating.
Thank you for your assistance, Gary.
Thank you,
Much
sir.
appreciated.
Jared, thank you very much. Moving
you.
on. Next up. The proclamation, Chad?
Thank you, Mayor. The city was contacted by the president of the Vietnamese community of Oregon with a suggestion of a proclamation for the Vietnamese heritage and freedom flag in hope that you, us, will formally recognize it. The proclamation is attached. The proclamation is on the back side of this, and it would be up to the council moving forward.
I'll give you a motion to proclaim the Vietnamese American Heritage and Freedom Flag as the official flag of Vietnamese Americans and show the city's support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? I, the mayor of Gerhart, do hereby recognize the Vietnamese American Heritage and Freedom Flag as the official flag of the Vietnamese Americans in the city of Gerhart. I resolutely encourage all to join in the reverent recognition of this cultural Vietnamese heritage and freedom flag.
You got the flag.
I do not believe we have a copy of the flag here. We do not. Are we going to
Oh,
be able
there it
to?
is. Oh.
Thank you very much. And would that be Tao too?
I think you might be silent.
Oh, you're on silent.
Yeah. This is Thao, the president of the Vietnamese community of Oregon. On behalf of my community, thank you so much for approving the Vietnamese Heritage and Freedom Flag for Vietnamese American organization in the city of Gerhart. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. Thank you, Mayor Smith, City Administrator Charles Sweet, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that we will work with your city to make your city and the Oregon State the better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
All right, moving on, we are going to the city attorney services contract. Synopsis, please, Jack.
So check here. Thank you. Gotcha. Had that backwards. Okay, thank you very much. City attorney services contract. City Attorney Peter Watts has requested the change from an hourly monthly billing to an annual retainer. A retainer of service contract lays out the duties of both parties so that all parties have an agreement on the services that will be provided, how they will be provided, when, and at what cost. It would also streamline budget estimations as monthly hourly billing can fluctuate depending on the complexity of an issue and services needed. Resolution 989 that was passed during the budget process for this year already laid the foundation for this change with the assumption and agreement following. The attached services contract is that agreement. City staff recommends council motion to approve entering into the attached attorney services agreement with Mr. Peter Watts. As cited in ROS throughout, the draft was written based on similar attorney service contracts. And the financial analysis is the base cost is $5,000 per month. Previously, the city was invoiced a couple of times a year, spanning multiple months of service at varying hours. This contract would retain Peter for his work with us and simplify things a little bit both for the city and Peter. And be happy to take any questions that you may have.
So what's the cost been so far? I mean, it's just gonna be,
Right, so there have always been hours that I haven't billed the city for when either members of the community or people wanted to inform me of a city issue. So when I wasn't receiving direction from Chad, I just didn't bill for that time. And what happened over about the last year and a half was I received a list of individuals that was anonymously sourced. Made me think that I had an obligation to provide that list to others, and hilarity did not ensue. I did not bill the city for any of that time. And then I got a bunch of public records requests related to documents that I didn't have possession of, and for information that I did not know. And I realized during that time that it's incredibly hard to prove a negative. And yet we have public records requests that went to the DA, and I didn't bill the city for that time. And then we had a lawyer who was threatening to sue the city over issues related to all those things, and I didn't bill the city for that time either. Because again, this wasn't work that came from city staff, this was work that was created. And then since then, I'll just say it's gotten harder to really classify something as city work versus preventative problems. And I just thought building is a bane of my existence anyway. It would be nice if I was on a flat fee basis, so city staff didn't worry about contacting me, that I could spend the amount of time that I thought was needed on some of these issues. And so what I did, is full disclosure, was I looked to see what Cannon Beach had allocated for their attorney, and then I cut that number in half. So the budget that I saw then was $10,000 a month. How that's paid, I don't know. That's just what was in their budget. Then I said, all right, Gerhart will get the discount. And so there are a variety of reasons that I would prefer this based on the reality over the last year and a half. The amount of time that I've taken on, spent on issues that I did not believe I could. I think many people probably would have sent a bill, but again, my default has always been Chad or you, the council, direct me, and I do your work. So when other people are making me, I'm not doing work for those other people. I'm doing work to defend the city, but that's completely out of the control of you as a council and of your staff. So that is the other reason that I'm doing this, making this recommendation. Because it's not always clear when I'm getting the phone call or doing what, whether it should be categorized, how I think it should be categorized. So this makes it so I don't have to think about it anymore, and I can just send an invoice once a month. Justine doesn't have to call me and say, where's your bill? Chad doesn't feel bad because they haven't paid me a bill. Yeah, so those are the reasons that I'm proposing it. And that's how if you guys don't want it, we can go back to something else. I wouldn't want to have those conversations with staff though, about all right, how we're gonna divide up this time. Because for a long time, it was an insignificant amount of time that I was basically not billing the city or writing off. And it became an incredibly significant amount of my time. Just because of what happened. Not staff's fault, not council's fault. There's a lot of questions I wish I knew the answer to, I don't know. Either. But what happened, and I hope it doesn't happen again, but this is one way to make sure that we all are on the same page as far as what we're doing and how I'm getting compensated.
I have a question for you. Do you regularly do more than 20, 22 hours worth of work a month on City of Gerhart business, what you would deem legitimate business, either for the planning commission, for the city council, attending the 2 meetings that we have and the various calls that you receive from us on our.
Yeah, and as well as like going to Luba and doing those sort of things. So even prior to all of the stuff, you guys are a complicated city that has complicated issues for a city your size. So, and again, part of this too is, the easiest problem to solve is the problem you don't have. And so my preference is that the city staff, or maybe one of you as a counselor, maybe the mayor, or someone who's aware of something that could become an issue. And that is easier for me to handle on the front end as opposed to, and that was, last year, some of the issues we had, if someone was going to involve me in them, I really wish it had happened a couple of months before it happened, because then maybe some education could have taken, maybe some prevention could have happened. I don't think we would have, and that's not to blame whoever it was for what they did. I think they thought they were trying to do the right thing and all that. It just would have been a lot easier for everyone to deal with if I had learned about it earlier. And I think it may be what the person was concerned about, maybe having going on for a while. And that's an instance where I think, and so then then also staff doesn't have to worry about, okay, well, if we call them on this land use application or what have you, like how much is it gonna cost? They can just call me and I can, and if it doesn't feel fair, if it no longer feels fair, then it's taking a tremendous amount of my time, then I will start recording my hours just so I can have that conversation with you next year. To say, we thought we were going to be low maintenance and now we were Gerhart instead. So we'll have that conversation.
So Peter, you represent other cities as well, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you charge them hourly or monthly?
So so I didn't extend my contract with Scappoose. It was over in April, but I stayed through the end of last month. So I billed them a fixed rate. I billed SDK at a fixed rate. I recently did work for Westland, which was hourly. King City, I do hourly. And then other entities that bring me in, it's kind of on complex land use or elections law, generally bill them hourly. But my preference is to bill flat fee.
Thank you.
So Justine, we've got this in the budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to have a discussion, but don't we wait until we've made motions?
Yes, we do.
Well, then I'll move that we approve entering into the attached attorney services contract with Peter Watts.
I'll give you a second.
All right, and now we're at discussion.
Okay, first I'd like to say, Peter, that you have provided invaluable assistance to us over the years. And I, as a citizen, 8-year citizen of Gerhart, am deeply appreciative of everything you've done on our behalf, knowing that it has been very difficult at times. Having said that, I'm going to put a question out to everybody. The mayor, the counselors, staff, the citizens. I just want to put the question out because I don't know the answer to it. And my question is, would it be of value to the city of Gerhart for budgetary purposes, to know the number of hours billed, they're being billed, and for decision-making purposes to know what what categories, general categories, those hours that were billed were in. In other words, what was work done for those. So my question is, would it be of value to all of us to have those pieces of information going forward?
When I asked him how many hours he anticipated working on at minimum on Gerhardt's problems, I based that based on your previous hourly rate. And to get to that number, you would have to work about 22 hours a month on just Gerhardt problems. And I am betting that there are going to be many times when you exceed that number and we are going to come out on the better end of this deal. Would you say that that's probably accurate?
Yeah, if I try and think of a week where I spent less than 5 hours on Gerhard business, I would have a lot of trouble coming up with when that week was. Maybe like a holiday time or something. But
You're on vacation.
yeah, no.
You still take our calls with that.
I can't call on vacation, man. It's no, I think that you know, the benefit of the benefit of the flat, part of the benefit of the flat fee is that I'm per quarter all my time. And if you've ever billed by the hour and you're billing in 6-minute increments, and that's how lawyers bill, is, you know, phone call with Chad, discuss X, Y, and Z, point 4, is just, it ends up over the course of a month being a lot of time that I don't get to spend working on legal issues. I get to spend either recording my time contemporaneously and then finding whatever notepad I wrote it on and finding the other notepads I wrote other things on and adding them all up and checking it. So I think that I get why you would want to add that information. And I mean, if that's something that council wants, I can try and do that.
I would say to that, then if we were to go on a billing, we're gonna have to do a much better job of it because, bless you, Peter, for continuing to come back despite some of the things that have happened. Sometimes I wonder if we're gonna have to send the chief out to pick you up and make you come back in, and hold you hostage. But, things are always good until they're not. And I do not ever, it makes me nervous when we have a situation where hours are not being billed or we're not absolutely sure the hours are being billed, because then when somebody's upset, then there's always the possibility that they come back and say, well, what about this and this and this and this? And I don't like those kind of situations. That's why, you know, there are options to, or why sometimes it's better to do employees as exempt where, you know, and salaried, and that, you know, you just do the job, and we're not going to nitpick you on the hours or how many calls you made or whatnot. In a situation where you think that you're going to come out on the better end of the deal like this one, then I like contracts like this. So I'll just leave it at that. I think it protects us.
The other benefit is that I would like to participate in the work that Garrett's doing with DLCD. You know, I got one UGB expansion through. I am 6 years into UGB expansion and had Deluba at least once, if not 3 times this year on that one. But throughout, I think I've learned a lot. I think there is an acute housing shortage on the coast that needs to be addressed. And I think that there are very few lawyers that have gone through a non-legislative UGB expansion or through that process. So there just aren't very many of us. So for those reasons, I would like to be able to participate in this. And it's really more for the benefit of the county as a whole than it is for the city of Gerhart. I don't think it'll be fair for Gerhart to pay me for that. But again, with this sort of agreement, then it gives me the flexibility to, I'm not going to say volunteer because you know, I'm going to be providing my knowledge, but do something that's of community concern.
I can say this kind of situation has been helpful already. Peter has always given us more than what we've been doing. And I've been working with Peter for almost 9 years now. 8, 9?
11.
Holy
10 and a half. It was December 2012.
time flies when you have a blast. I can tell you that some of the things that have already happened is that staff is a little bit more free to contact me. When there's the one-off questions and things like that, they have been set free with this kind of situation as we knew it was coming up. So Angelina has access without having to go through permission. So does Christine, Justine, and so does City Council with everything. So this has been working out really well for us. He's been an incredible value for us. And I think that he still probably will work more if we pay him, knowing Peter.
Well, just this regional housing thing that we're gonna be going through. You know, I mean, it benefits us in Gerhard here because of our water situation, to be able to know what all the other communities are doing, and you're gonna be a part of that. So, you know, I mean, we're gonna get good value.
Not only that, but Peter's going to be helping us with the water rights. He brought us a fantastic attorney to help us with that and some other folks. So we're going to be keeping busy over the next couple of years. I can see it. And as you see by the call volumes and things that have been going on, you know, our liability and our exposure is greater because of the amount of work that we're doing. And he's been very helpful to us.
So we've had a motion and a second discussion, and
We have. Are you unhappy with your answer?
Well, I wasn't invested one way or the other. It was something that I thought was important to bring up and ask everybody. And I didn't have a predetermined outcome that I wanted to see necessarily. And I just wondered if we knew where our legal services attention was going, what types of subjects or topics or issues where that attention was going, that would predicate how we made decisions in the future as pieces of information. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to, you know, say that you're not working really hard for us, because I know you do. That's not my point here. My point is gathering pieces of data with which to make future decisions.
So Sharon, you're saying like an annual report saying I spent this 25% of my time on the old fire station, 25% on housing, 10% on homeless, just an annual breakdown of.
Or it could be monthly or quarterly, or,
I understand that.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would take that much. I
Would
mean,
that
you're
be
gonna know
possible?
when
Yeah, is that
I mean,
possible?
a lot of it depends on, like, if we have a new staffer, or we have a new planner or things of that nature versus someone that's been here a long time. It just requires them to get up to speed, and I certainly play a role in that. So in last year and you know, again, people are now able to contact me directly. So I've gotten a lot more emails related to planning issues. Just questions, you know, okay, how does state preemption work? And things of that nature. So some of that depends on how the city's staffed. I think that water is going to be an ongoing issue. The attorney who works up in the West Coast that I introduced to Chad Peter Moore, I believe I would be collaborating with him on some stuff. And again, that's getting him up to speed so he doesn't have to learn all this himself. And then, I mean, you guys are unpredictable. So like short-term rentals, I thought that might be something. I didn't think it would be what it was. there are many that come to mind. But I think that growth for this town, for the city of Deer Heart, and how do you keep the vision and values, and how do you have, to the extent that the state, because the state is becoming more and more prescriptive in what cities have to do. There more preemption used to be incredibly rare, like you know, the OLCC, that was preemption, but that was very rare. Now what we're seeing is preemption in housing. We're seeing preemption in even in things like design code, where the state's coming down. The housing, there's what's called needed housing, and if an applicant asks for needed housing condition and the city doesn't get it, the city's on the hook for attorney's fees. And nobody, you know, thank goodness I'm kind of a land use nerd that reads all this stuff, because otherwise one of my other cities would be paying attorney's fees. Because they made that argument not at a hearing, but on a piece of paper that was put into the record. So I think that if the state continues getting more and more prescriptive into how cities can grow or how they must grow, that's going to be a bunch of my time. Which is why I think that this countywide regional planning is like critically important. And then I think that I don't know. I mean, I could very easily see, in the past, we've had some areas that wanted to annex into the cities that were in an urban growth boundary that didn't. Some of them might be interested because of short-term rentals, and I think people would like to benefit from the city's regulations. I think that, so that could happen. The other thing is that, you know, we're capped at 3% increase for property taxes, and our actual expenses are going up like 7, 8, 9%. So we're on construction projects more like 20, 25% is what I'm seeing. So I think that I think we're going to probably need to have some conversations about revenue and how can the city get more revenue. And I don't know whether that would involve passing a levy or whether that will be annexing, but those are the sort of conversations that are going to need to occur if people want to continue having the level of services they have now. So I have something similar to the water rate conversation, but happening in a lot of different areas and trying to figure out what tools are at our disposal and how to do it. I hope we don't have any litigation related to something unforeseen, but that's beyond our control, so.
Unscheduled.
Yeah.
So Peter, the question, would you be willing to give us a quarterly report saying, in the last quarter, I spent 50% of my time doing this and 25%?
Yeah.
Can you agree to do it?
I can give you broad brushstrokes as far
No,
as.
I'm not asking for, you know,
Right.
a 6-minute increment.
Okay, so does that need to be written into the agreement?
No, I believe just being recorded as something that he agrees to is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
All those in favor of, is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the contract with Peter Watts as written?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. Fire Department Reserve Funds Request. Give us a synopsis, Chad.
Sure, I'll just start with the beginning, and I'm going to turn this over to Chief Como. Fire Chief is requesting reserve funds up to $10,000 for a major repair to one of the fire apparatus rigs. And this has to do with our command response engine. I'll let Chief Como fill you in with the details.
So at the very end of last budget year, we had kind of a semi-major repair as well. Had to happen to our main engine. Both that one and this one are not due to misuse or abuse. It's repairs that the company said they were expecting, but you don't know if they're going to happen until they do. The last one happened, the turbo went out on it, and the mechanic said they replaced 12 turbos in that 30-day period of time. It's been kind of the same apparatus throughout the year. What happened now, right after we got the apparatus back, the power steering overheated and went out. When that happens, we weren't even able to drive it to Hillsborough in a trailer at Hillsborough, which was a pretty expensive tow fee. With that, and the cost again is gonna be somewhere around the $8,000 to $10,000. We have to replace the power steering pump, the power steering gearbox, and so this problem won't happen again, which is what they're now putting in brand new fire engines. They're gonna fabricate and put in a power steering cooling system. It doesn't have one, it will have one after this is, and all new fire engines have them that are built nowadays, so this problem doesn't happen. So apparatus was undrivable, we couldn't even drive it to Hillsborough to get it fixed. The company that's fixing it is very well known to fix it, so much that Pierce and H&W took their specs from what they fabricated, the cooling system, and they're now using those and putting into their apparatuses for that. So our main engine is unusable. It's in Hillsborough right now. We're using our backup engine, which is a tank. It's great, but it's our only engine now, and we don't have one at the substation to use for the crew out there.
The reason for this request also, these are kind of surprise expenses that we've had. We didn't want to deplete our current budget so that we couldn't react to small or medium-sized emergencies as we needed to. So that's when I was talking to Como, and we decided to come for a reserve fund request. This is an up to amount. We are hoping not to spend it all, but these are expensive vehicles. This is our firefighting engine as well. We have two of these very important pieces of equipment that go on almost every call we have.
Yep.
How long?
How long for what?
The repair.
I was told 1.5 to 2 days to 2 days. They got it Monday late afternoon. So they've had it in the shop 2 full days. I'm gonna talk to them tomorrow and hoping it's fixed.
And how old is this engine?
10 or 12 years.
Yeah,
So it's fairly recent.
yeah.
It's a good rate.
Our apparatus that is, well, NFPA says apparatus is out of service for 20 years. I'm gonna replace it because of everything. They just get so much use. Our one that we're using in backup is 25 years old. So that's the one we're using as our main engine right now because of our main engine now.
She just keeps on going.
It's a tank.
Motion,
I move to allow up to $10,000 allocation of fire apparatus and reserve funds to make needed repairs.
second,
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor?
I
Aye.
thank you guys very much.
I believe you got. All right, moving on. Council concerns. Dana, Sharon,
More.
Rita,
Nothing.
Preston. Zip. I'm out of here. Motion,
Motion to
adjourn,
adjourn.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Council.
Over. Thank you very much, everybody. Chief, thank you.